Hello out there folks, hope you're all doing well. Today we're in Le Mans Ultimate by Studio 397 and Motorsport Games because just today patch 3 was dropped for this simulation, and it's a big one. When I saw it in Steam earlier, it was downloading, it was about 8.6 gigabytes, so it's fairly lengthy. There are updates to BOPs on certain cars. There are updates to the way the cars interact with the rain in terms of how the rain falls on the car. There are updates to tracks, and there are updates to the force feedback. And I'm going to go over some of the main points of the update which are important to me. So to start off with, one thing which is not a big thing, but I'm very glad it's been fixed. When you jumped into a session, so I'm in a session here at Sebring, in a practice session at the moment with the hypercars and the GTEs. Whenever you jumped into a session, whatever tyres your car was on, it didn't matter here, either in the standings or the live timings. It would just say that your tyres were wet tyres, whether you had wet tyres on or not. That has now been resolved, so in live timing or standings, or rather, you can see that where I'm on soft tyres, and you can see that that is actually the tyre I'm on, so you can see that soft tyre there. So if I change them to wet or hard or anything, so let's change them to hards for example, go back to the standings, and there we go, my car's on hard tyres. So that's just one little thing I'm really happy about. Now also there has been a change to the graphic settings. Apparently there you can now set a max frame rate. I haven't been able to find that in either the visuals settings or the graphic settings before you jump onto the track, because obviously you've got more graphic settings available to you. Haven't been able to find that. Another thing, and we've got to go back to settings and go to gameplay here. So in gameplay, under difficulty, you have things like artificial aids, like stability control, spin recovery, ABS, and things like that. Now, obviously, these are not electronic aids. These are artificial aids. The cars don't have these. These are to help people out who might be playing on a gamepad rather than the wheel, or to help beginners get used to the car before they go full simulation. And you can have key bindings for all of these. I have no key bindings for mine because I don't use them. I like full simulation. Those key bindings have been removed. You can now, if you enter a server online, you can only, whilst you're here in the pits, you can only come into your settings here and turn them off and on from here. You can no longer start driving, be in the car and change them. That is not a thing anymore. And I'm kind of quite pleased about that, because there is a bit of a contention going on between different sim racers at the moment who would rather not have them allowed at all on certain servers. I'm kind of with people on that, or at least there should be weight penalties for them, that sort of thing. I think, well, I won't get into what I think about that, but that's how it is now. No more key bindings for them. Okay, so another big thing that has been improved. We're going to start driving now. Force feedback has been equalized for a lot of the cars, and that means that previously, if I was to jump into something like the Aston Martin, which has the heaviest, as a GTE car, has the heaviest force feedback in the game, I could set that to whatever level I liked in my settings. So if I previously had it set, if we come to controls here, I had my force feedback. Oh, can't find force feedback. What am I doing wrong here? Wheel and pedals, force feedback. I had that set at 45. And that was a fine level for me in the Aston. I was very comfortable with the weight. However, I then went and jumped into a hypercar, like, say, the Toyota, which has got sort of the lightest force feedback in the sim. I'd have to up that to about 55%, because the difference was so large. It was like, you know, trying to wrestle Mike Tyson in the Aston, and then you'd get into the Toyota and it was like trying to wrestle a flower. That's been equalised, and you'll see that my force feedback is now at 71%, and the reason I've upped it so much is because all of the GTE cars, and I was using the Aston Martin as my base, if you like, all of them have had their force feedback strengthened by, or rather decreased in strength by 36%. So I've gone from 45 and made it up to 21, added 36%. That's got me back to the strength that I was used to with it. But now, when I go to a hypercar, I don't need to change that. Because, yes, there are cars which have lighter and heavier force feedback in the sim now, but they're not extremes. It's not like the difference between trying to wrestle Mike Tyson over a flower. It's more like the difference between one car's got slightly heavier steering and one car's got slightly lighter. So I'm really, really, really chuffed about that. Really happy. But one thing that is not in the patch notes, this has not been in the patch notes, and I've just discovered this, and I'm really pleased about it, because I actually made, if you've seen my video, or if you know my channel there, I've made a video already called LMU Force Feedback Tips and why auto does not work. What I mean by that is I have here a Fanatec Clubsport wheel, so 2.5, and this has, I can do this on the fly on the wheel, or I can do it through the software. It has an auto feature which lets the driver of the wheelbase automatically set your force feedback if the game gives it the correct signal. So you'll get the correct lock for every car, on your wheel will be 1-to-1 on the screen. And in R Factor 2, which is uses the same engine as this sim, in fact it's where it comes from, that setting worked perfectly. However, if I realised after a while that in LMU I had to take it out of auto because it just didn't work. I wouldn't get the correct degrees of rotation to the car, and my wheel would not match up on the screen, and so I'd have to go and put it to 900, which is the full or it's the largest lock that this wheel has, and that's what's recommended to do. However, now I'm going to set it, I've got it at 900, and you can see it matches up all the way to the soft lock stop there. But now if I put it on auto, it matches up. I've got the correct lock and correct degrees of rotation. So now I don't have to change between, I don't have to change that setting every time I swap between R Factor 2 and LMU. So I'm really happy. And as I said, the strength of the force feedback has been sorted out in all of the cars. Now, I am going to go over something that this patch hasn't addressed because I think it's important. And obviously, well, I've never driven a hypercar before. This doesn't happen in the GTE cars. It doesn't happen in the Ocria. You can only get it to happen in one of the GTE cars at an extremely low speed. But the Cadillac is certainly the worst car for this. If you drive this at a very low speed, as in below about 27 miles per hour, when you're turning, if you turn really tightly, the force feedback gets to a certain amount of degrees, and then it's almost like the force feedback inverts, and it starts pulling in that direction. I have never driven any vehicle where you've got the steering all the way to the left or the right, and you start accelerating. It doesn't go with the path of the least resistance and start to auto center itself. I'll show you what I mean. So, oh, there's that lovely. Right, I'm gonna now just turn this corner hard left there. We're doing 9 miles per hour, and watch this. There you go. It's literally being hit by another car there. It's literally pulling. Look, it's doing it itself. It's pulling in the direction of turn. So from there, it's doing it itself. I don't even need to touch it. And yeah, that has not been addressed, and maybe that's what a hypercar does, but I don't think so. Like I said, no vehicle I've ever been in, obviously, unless you've got your wheels turned completely sideways and then you lock up the front tyres, then they probably would stay there. But doesn't kind of make sense here. To really show you what I mean, I'm going to get to a big wide open area of track, and hopefully I don't get hit by another car, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're slowing down to under 27 miles per hour here. So we're at 21, and there we go, look. It's just, it's actually pulling in the direction. Now if I gradually start to accelerate, I have to wait till we've done another full circle, else we're going to end up on the grass. I'm going to gradually start to accelerate. There you go. It's not until about 26, 27 miles per hour where it rights itself. So 20 miles per hour. There we go. It finally comes round. But if you stay at a really low speed... Oh, God, crikey. Oh, well, that doesn't really matter. Because for the purpose of this test, it doesn't matter if we hit other cars. So at a really low speed, as I said... See? There we go. Really low speed. It's literally pulling in that direction until I speed it up. So it's not fixed that. So tell me what you think about that in the comments. That's a really weird oddity, but it is a thing with this this game engine, because I'm a long-term user of R Factor 2. It's the G Motor 2.5. This is the G Motor 2.5 with a few graphical improvements and other bits and pieces. But this also happens with the, at least I can think of one car that does it in R Factor 2, and that's the Formula E. So let me know what you think of that. Okay, so let's pop out of here. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that, actually. I did just want to go over quickly the rain settings. Where's our event settings? We want to go straight into a race. So we're going to get rid of practice and load that up. Now, there have been improvements to the way the rain falls on cars. Apparently the rain wasn't rippling or dropleting correctly when it fell on the cars, and you could see that. So that's been updated. However, I'm just going to go over something here which I think is a bit of a problem. You let me know what you think in the comments. There's something that's... Nothing else about the rain has been updated, so we still don't have pedals that function as pedals. Like, for instance, you have in iRacing, which at the moment, and I make no bones about this, I think it has got the best weather system out of any sim at the moment. The way it does rain is absolutely fantastic. That's not to say that iRacing isn't perfect. You know, there's things like the tyre model, and don't we all love the tyre model in LMU and R Factor 2? But I think there are still problems with the rain, and it goes further than not just having proper working pedals and not having... We've got a in LMU and R Factor 2 we do have... when the rubber in line gets wet, it gets more slippery, but it's such a small difference. So maybe that'll be improved in the future. I know Reza Studios are going to improve their rubber in line because they do that as well. But they're going to make it more obvious. In iRacing, you really know about it when you get on a wet rubber in line. So I've set up a race here. It should be raining, and the track should be 100% wet. And you can see my car's on soft tyres there, so I'm going to go and change my tyres. I love the fact that it just shows the correct tyres now. That's great. So there we go. We're on wets now, and no, I don't want to leave there. I want to go to standings, and you can see we're on wet tyres now. So it is raining. Now, I can't see any rain lights on the cars here. I can see their brake lights, but I can't see their rain lights. And I have found that sometimes, if I can get behind a GT... Oh. Just ignore that. I'm trying to get behind the GT cars. There we go. Sometimes they're on and sometimes they're off. Now I can see, now I'm behind the GTE cars, that they do have working rain lights. The GTE cars there have got working rain lights. Couldn't see them in the hypercars. But I have noticed that sometimes they work on the GTEs and sometimes they don't. But the main issue I have is the way the rain looks. Now I'm going to try and stay within 30 to 50 foot of these cars in front. And I'm about 40, 30 foot behind them, and I just can't see, I can't see them at all. I cannot see their lights. Okay, you may not see the cars in heavy rain, but their lights at least you should be able to. But the rain is just, it's like white dust. It is like smoke. It looks like white smoke when you're directly behind the cars. I'd like that to be improved. Anyway, back to updates. And I'm going to go over the last update, which is going to be to do with online. And I haven't actually tested this yet, so I'm going to see if I can find this quickly whilst you guys are watching here. So we're going to go and join a practice server. And apparently, joining practice servers has been improved as well. If there's been something in the patch notes. If you want to look at the full patch notes, by the way, you need to go to Studio 397's website, go on LMU, and then go to their forum. And we'll choose any car here. It doesn't really matter which car we choose. We're going to go into practice 3 there, which has only got 3 players in it. But we don't. That's good because it'll load quickly. So, previously, when I went online, I'd figured out how to chat. You could chat, but you could only do it whilst you were in car. And you'd have to have a button tied to that. So, I put my button C for chat, and I'd press that, and a little line would come up, and then if I typed, I could see my text, and you'd have a little box where you could see whether people were replying to you, or you could see if they were saying something. But if you were sitting in the pits, there was no chat box in the pits, which I'm very used to in rFactor 2. In rFactor 2, you can chat from in-car, although you're not supposed to when you're qualifying all racing. That's in the rules of the online system, and it's in this, by the way. I've seen people doing it. But anyway, you could chat whilst you're in the car in practice, and you could come out to your garage, and there'd be a monitor with what's going on track, and there'd be a chat box. Now, previously there hasn't been, so I'm looking for it now. And in rFactor 2, the chat box is down here under the monitor screen, where you can see what's happening with the cars on. Oh, hello, there we go. There's a button. There's a new button. It says chat. Can't see a chat box, but what happens if we press chat? Oh, there we go. It's opened a chat box. Let's try typing hello in there. Shouldn't think anyone will reply because they're all racing, but there we go. We have a chat box. So that's a nice little thing for when you want to speak to people in the pits. If you're in there with a mate, you know, on the same server, and you want to ask, so what setup are you using or whatever. That's quite nice to help. There is one other thing that I'm looking for. You probably won't be able to see it until you get into an actual race, but apparently also the patch notes tells me that when you are in a live session or or at least a race, apparently somewhere in here it tells you which split you're in, which would be nice. I'm assuming that you don't get that. I'm sure you don't get that in the practice servers, just only when you're in a race. But apparently it tells you the split that you were in. So if you've got 10 cars on one server, 10 cars on the other, and 10 cars on the third one, if you're in the second one, that's your second split. If you're in the top split with the higher times, you're in that split. But apparently it shows you that when you're in the race session, but also in your results now when you have your results. Anyway, that's about it. Like I said, if you want to go and check out those patch notes, go over to the Studio 397 website. You can check out the updates. There have been graphical updates to tracks, updates to the collision mesh around the last corner at Spa as well. Little things like that. And yeah, if you've found this video useful, please subscribe to my channel here, because it really helps with the upkeep of the channel, helps it pay for itself, and it helps me out a lot, so I can keep buying content to do this with. And if you like the video, give us a like. And if you disagree with anything or agree with anything, you can tell me in the comments, because that's what it's there for. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Happy sim racing, and I think I'm off to do a bit of online driving in LMU. Catch you later.